What do you do when you're stressed out?
Well, I was talking to someone at work about this the other day, actually. He's training to be a counsellor at the moment, and he was talking about grounding yourself, I think was the term. And he said, when you're stressed or you're in a high state of anxiety, you should have something that you can go to or brings you back down. His is a pack of Whatsits, which I love. He said it's like childhood nostalgia. Mine, I think, is actually just putting my pyjamas on and sitting on the sofa with the dogs. It's very relaxing. Can't be stressed when you've got a Cocker Spaniel 1 centimetre from your face, can you? What do you do when you're stressed?
Just cry by myself.
No, you don't.
I do.
Don't say that.
I just cry into my pillow.
No, you don't. This is The Method, a podcast from Thriver about what health looks like in the real world.
I'm Dr. Greg Potter. I'm a scientist and health and performance consultant.
And I'm Charlie Edmondson. Whilst I love sport, I'm definitely not a science expert. I've got a regular job, and I'm here to remind Greg of what life's actually like when you're not a nerd.
How dare you call me a nerd? So on this show, we'll work out some sustainable changes to your routine that will actually make a difference to your health. And to do that, we've got a simple 3-step method. First, we bring in an expert to unpack the science behind one key health question. Second, we provide some tips and habits you can try right now. And then finally, we put the practice to the test.
Each week, we're going to hear from those who have tried and tested our recommendations to help turn a so-called ideal lifestyle into something that actually works for you. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Crumpet. How are you? You're looking very fresh.
No, you're lying. I'm in the trenches of marathon training.
Is your training stressful?
I do find long runs that I've not got to worry about pace really quite therapeutic. I put an audiobook on, and sometimes, I don't know whether you've done this ever before, like if you're driving, you know when you get from A to B and you think, I don't really remember getting from A to B. I keep doing that on my long runs.
The reason I asked, of course, is because I was trying to segue seamlessly into the subject of today's conversation, which is stress.
Yes. Today's guest is David Spiegel, Professor of Psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine, where he spent decades researching the links between stress, health, sleep, trauma, and even hypnosis.
Is that your song for the day?
No. Got another one for that, obviously. Relax, don't do it. Obviously, it's perfect. He's published hundreds of scientific papers and books and is a member of the National Academy of Medicine. So, in short, he spent a lifetime trying to understand how our minds and bodies interact.
My thoughts about how to cope with stress was strongly influenced by a good friend of mine who tragically passed away about 1.5 years ago, Dr. Simon Marshall. And he, like many psychologists, used to speak about emotion-focused coping strategies and problem-focused coping strategies. The distinction being that with problem-focused strategies, you're trying to address the source of the stress. So if there's something that you can do about the stress, like having a difficult conversation with someone or better planning your finances, then you can intervene there. But in some instances, you might be stressed about something that's out of your control. And that is where emotion-focused coping strategies come into their own. You've already mentioned one of them, which is exercising. But the idea with these is that you're not trying to address the source of the stress. You're trying to improve how you respond to it. And so some adaptive ones include things like different types of breath work, mindfulness meditation, exercise, and so on. And in part because of my interest in sleep, there are lots of these that I might draw on in certain instances, using certain types of relaxation methods like progressive muscle relaxation, body scanning meditations, certain types of breathing exercises, and so on. But in general, it's best to use a combination of both, the problem-focused and the emotion-focused. The people who cope best with stress tend to use some combination of both. Those coping strategies don't involve medications typically. And our focus in our conversation with today's guest is on non-medication ways to better cope with stress. After we first speak about the biology of stress and some of the many ways in which it affects us.
Not drugs.
Not drugs.
Oh, right. Well, shall we bring in Dr. Is he a doctor?
He's more than a doctor. He's a doctor as in a psychiatrist, but he's also a professor. This guy's got more than 400 publications. He's an absolute...
Professor and doctor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we should have a separate term for that. Profector.
Oh, I was going to say...
Professor.
Oh, Greg.
I don't know.
Profector.
Yeah.
David Spiegel.
The great man.
Shall we bring him in?
Let's bring him in. Let's do it. David, thanks so much for joining us. And since we're speaking about stress today, which is intimately related to psychology, I'm going to ask a question that's going to sound very Freudian, but tell us about your parents. And the reason I asked that, as you know, is because I believe that they were your gateway to your work as a psychiatrist.
Yes, that's true. I hope you're not charging me a psychoanalytic fee for answering this question of yours. Both of my parents were psychiatrists and psychoanalysts, and they told me that I was free to be any kind of psychiatrist I wanted to be, and here I am. My father specialized in hypnosis because he was getting his psychoanalytic training in the 1940s, and a Viennese refugee named Gustav von Aschaffenburg, who was a forensic psychiatrist, escaped the Nazis and came here. And he couldn't serve in the military here, but he volunteered to teach young doctors hypnosis. He had a smallpox scar right in the middle of his forehead. When he was interviewing prisoners, some of them would sort of nod off and go into some kind of altered state that he then determined was a state of hypnosis. And so he learned about it, he taught it. Our dinner table conversations were very interesting and got me, when I got to medical school, to take a course in hypnosis myself, and I've been doing it ever since.
So today we're going to be looking at the science of stress and techniques to help cope better with it. But before we get into the mechanisms, could you explain what's actually happening in our brains and our bodies when we are stressed?
Well, when you're stressed, your body goes into fight or flight mode. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your muscles tense, you start to sweat. And what happens then is what I call the snowball effect, where you then notice that your body's reacting that way, and you start thinking, oh my God, this must be really bad. And so the things that stressed you, whether it's somebody yelling at you or a crazy driver or a deadline that you have to deal with, it seems worse. And so you feel more anxious, and then your body reacts to that. And so stress involves increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine, which facilitate those kinds of body changes. One of the ways we use hypnosis to help people with stress is to start calming your body first and then deal with the stressor. You know, normally people think it's the other way around. If I solve the problem, I'll feel better. Well, that's true, but if you're too stressed out, you won't be able to solve the problem.
So you just mentioned there the secretion of two, I can't even say them back to you, David.
Epinephrine and norepinephrine, yes.
What are those?
They're basically neurotransmitters. They're part of what we call the sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
These are secreted when you're under stress, your heart rate, blood pressure go up, and they stimulate the fight or flight reaction.
Okay.
If you think about it, you know, humans are pathetic physical creatures. You know, we're not that big. We're not that
Thank
tall.
you very much.
We don't. You know, it wasn't personal. I was being more general, Greg.
I think right now.
and I was not talking about Charlie, by the way. I want you to know. But, you know, we don't run very fast. We don't see that well. We don't smell that well. We don't hear that well. And we would not have survived to despoil the planet had it not been for the fact that we have this big brain that helps us process a lot of information and filter in what we need to know and filter out what we don't need to know. And we tend, however, to react to all stressors as if they were physical stressors. And that's a problem, because if your boss gave you a new work assignment that you can't possibly do, that's not a physical reaction you need, it's a psychological one. But if your body is wasting time and energy and distracting you by increasing heart rate and blood pressure and making you miserable, it's detracting from your ability to deal with social and complex cognitive problems and emotional problems. So we've evolved to the point where physical threat is not the number one problem. It's psychological stress and learning how to manage that. And that means managing your body's reaction, because the natural reaction is to be ready to fight. And that's oftentimes not the right thing to do. So the brain's ability to modulate, to reprocess stress, handle your body's reaction, is a tremendous adaptive advantage that people can benefit from learning how to manage better.
I think your question, Charlie, might be a product of which side of the pond we're on. So when David says epinephrine and norepinephrine, to us, that's adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Adrenaline, noradrenaline.
Right. So when me and Greg have been chatting around what we'll be talking about today, he's mentioned that we'll be discussing hypnosis, which I know I'm not even going to say very little. I know nothing about. So I'm curious, David, from a scientific perspective, what sort of problems has hypnosis actually been shown to help with?
Hypnosis is just a state of highly focused attention. It's like getting so caught up in a good movie. Have you ever had this happen, Charlie or Greg? You get so caught up in a good movie, you forget you're watching a movie and
Yeah.
enter the imagined world. It's believed in imagination, and it's something that can be very useful and valuable. And I'll give you a recent example. I know if you watch the Winter Olympics, Elisa Liu won the gold in figure skating. And her performance was like totally different from everyone else's. She won the gold first at age 16, and then she quit. She said, I don't want to just do nothing else in my life. But she came back. She came back differently. And she was much more not into winning a medal, but into having a deep experience of expressing what her body wanted to do when she heard music that she liked. And she said, I visualize my entire program multiple times before I do it. I also visualize the patterns of my breathing. And that, to me, is a state of self-hypnosis, that she's intensely focused on the process and on engaging with her body, not on whether she'll be up on the stand at the end. And she actually mentioned a part of her brain. There's a thing in our brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it's basically where your willpower is stored. Well, that's not quite right, but it's close. We've been able to show that reduction in activity in the dorsal part of the anterior cingulate, right next to it, is correlated very strongly with hypnosis, with going into a state of hypnosis. You turn down activity in the salience network. That's the pattern matching threat processing part of the brain. And so people in hypnosis allow themselves to focus intently and allow their bodies to feel more relaxed and comfortable while they're doing it. But hers, she was hardly relaxed when she was dancing on the ice, but she was totally engaged with her body. And you as an athlete, Charlie, may notice that when you're really in it, you're not worried about the end or what the time is going to be. You have a different kind of relationship with your body. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's funny, I was just thinking then, I'm marathon training at the moment, so I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks. And my miles are 20 plus at the moment. And sometimes I'll chew through 6-7 miles and not even really remember running 6 miles. I think, how have I got here? But I'm so focused in what I'm listening to that it kind of, you just switch off everything, but your body seems to remember
That's it.
what to do.
Yeah. Hypnosis is not some weird stage show thing. It's a naturally occurring state that many humans can experience. And it allows you to just immerse yourself in the experience and not worry about the consequences or the outcome.
Mm-hmm. One of the issues in psychology research has been irreproducibility, and that's not exclusive to psychology. We see that in other fields of study too. But that made me think, I wonder if a lot of the magic of hypnosis is practitioner dependent. And I don't want to blow smoke here, but you have a brilliant voice.
Thank you.
And you strike me as being a very nice, decent guy. And you probably know more about hypnosis.
You're 2 for 2 so far.
Yeah, well done, Greg.
yeah, just carry on the flattery.
That's the rest of the podcast, actually, David. It's just compliments.
It's good.
Thanks, everyone. See you later. But I mention that because I imagine that you, in part because of those characteristics, are a much more effective hypnosis practitioner than some other people. Do we know anything about how practitioner-dependent hypnosis is, and does that make it hard to study?
It's a very reasonable question, Greg, but I actually think that a lot of what I've contributed to our understanding of hypnosis is sort of the opposite. All hypnosis is really self-hypnosis, and we know that there are reliable differences in hypnotizability. And so thank you. I like to think I'm good at it. But I've had plenty of patients who pay good money to come see me and who I test for hypnotizability, and their score is like a 0. I could talk at them all day long, and they won't enter a hypnotic state. And in the past, we've sort of blamed the patient. He's resisting, That's not it. Some people have the ability and some don't. And what I try to do is identify how hypnotizable they are. And we have a test on our hypnosis app, Reverie. It takes about 6 minutes. And you can try out and see how hypnotizable you are. And it's a very stable trait. It's as stable in adult life as IQ. Over a 25-year interval, the retest reliability of hypnotizability is 0.7. Now, that's like IQ. So it's not, can I hypnotize anyone? No. And if you go to these stage shows, you'll notice they don't just do this with anybody. The first half of the show is screening through the audience to find people who are extremely hypnotizable. So they get like the upper 10%, and then they can do all these hypnotic tricks with them. But it's not their great skill. It's determining who has the ability and teaching them how to use it.
And that trait like stability suggests that hypnotizability probably isn't that trainable, and therefore there are going to be some people that generally respond very well to it when used judiciously, other people less so. And I've heard you speak about this before. My understanding is that it's unlikely to ever really cause problems. The potential for adverse effects is very minor. Is that accurate? Are there any groups of people for whom you think it's completely contraindicated?
No, there's nobody for whom it's completely contraindicated. It's how you use it. When we started Reverie, I was very nervous about this, because 30 years ago, I wouldn't have dared build a hypnosis app and say, download it at the App Store, Google Play, and go at it. I would worry that something like you're talking about would happen. We've had about 1.2 million downloads. We have good 35,000 people at any one time using it. And the number of problems that have come up is about 10, which shocks me. Here's the odd thing. We have this prejudice in medicine, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that the only real treatments are the physical ones: ingestion, injection, or incision. Those are the only things that work. And these psychological things are either useless or dangerous or both. And that's the prejudice about hypnosis. And yet, last year, 118,000 Americans died of opioid overdoses in the United States, most of them caused by excessively large prescriptions by physicians after surgery. You give someone who's had a minor procedure a month's worth of oxycodone, and they wind up getting addicted to it and dying from it. People don't say, well, don't take drugs because they're dangerous. They can be. I prescribe medications, but hypnosis has never succeeded in killing anybody yet. So people think, well, it's either ineffective or it's nothing if it doesn't kill anybody. And it is very troubling to me that we are not helping people mobilize their inner resources to control problems like stress and pain and insomnia and habit problems. We get 1 out of 4 people after one session to stop smoking. That's as good as you get with medications. Hypnosis can be extraordinarily helpful to people if they learn how to use it, and it is not at all dangerous.
So just looking now at the practical tips that we can give to people, for someone who feels constantly stressed and doesn't know where to start, what would be a realistic first step for someone to take?
Download the Reverie app or get some other kind of hypnosis and try our stress reduction technique.
When you're saying Reverie, could you just spell that? So just in case.
Yeah, sure. Reveri.
Okay.
Like dream, but without the E at the end. And it's available on the App Store, Google Play, or from our website, reverie.com. The first week is free. And what we teach you to do is picture yourself, go into a state of self-hypnosis. You can do it very quickly, counting from 1 to 3. Look up, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Breath out, eyes relaxed, let your body float. Imagine you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. And once you've imaged a place where you naturally feel physically relaxed, you can then, from that point of view, learn that, first of all, no matter how stressed out you are, your body doesn't have to be stressed out with you. So you teach yourself to use self-hypnosis to dissociate your physical reaction from your psychological problem. So you get your body floating, and then I have people picture on an imaginary screen one thing that's troubling them, that's stressing them, while their body is floating and comfortable. And so you learn that you can deal with the stressor without automatically having this fight or flight reaction in your body. And then I say, now on the other side of the screen, picture one thing you can do to help with the problem on the left. It may not be the best or the only thing, but it's one thing you can do. And so they learn to better address the stressor at the same time as maintaining comfort in their body. Now, does this work? And Greg, you were asking about, evidence about, do these kinds of things actually work? Well, we just published a paper in a British journal, NPJ, Nature Publishing, Digital Health. It is an observational study of 83,000 of our Reverie users. And in 10 minutes, they had a 15% reduction on average, learning to do the exercise that I just told you about. Wow. And so 4 out of 5 had an immediate improvement. And they could do it time and again, and every time they did it, they got the same result, just the way you would if you took an anti-anxiety medication, only it isn't a medication. So does it work? Yes.
Well, congratulations. And I suspect that that's very rewarding, seeing those data and the fact that you can help people at such scale now, whereas once upon a time as a psychiatrist, all of your work was one-on-one or in groups. And that's one of the benefits of technology. Thinking about some other ways of helping people cope with stress, you've done some research on different forms of breathing exercises.
Yes, we have.
And the effects of those on some measures of mental health. Are there any simple breathing exercises that are freely available that you would recommend to listeners? I believe that you actually have at least one of these in the Reverie app too, but if someone doesn't want to go away and download an app necessarily, what would be a simple breathing practice they can try if they're feeling a bit worked up and anxious?
Sure. You're right. We have two. We have cyclic, sighing, and box breathing on the Reverie app to try. But you're right. Some of them are very simple. So if you guys want to try it, just take stock for a moment of how stressed you're feeling right now. Give yourself a number from 1 to 10, and then just try this little breathing exercise. Inhale, starting with your abdomen through your nose. Pause, and then fill your lungs completely through your nose. And then slowly exhale through your mouth.
Some heavy breathing coming down the mic now, isn't there?
Yes. Try it again now. Inhale through your nose. Hold. Now fill your lungs. Slow exhale through your mouth. How are you feeling now?
Calm.
Calm. Yeah. You notice a change? What would your stress rating be now? Is it different from the way it was?
Well, part of me was thinking that Greg Potter is not doing this as I'm looking at him, because you're not heavy breathing down your mic like me and David.
I don't need to do a breathing exercise when I listen to David's voice.
It's very calming, isn't it?
He has that calming influence on me. It's incredible.
No one listening to this is like driving or something. They'd be like, "Oh, I'm very cool." All of a sudden,
David, you're like the David Attenborough of the psychiatry world.
Delightful.
Thank you. That's quite a compliment. So, Charlie, did you feel a difference in your body? Did you?
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very relaxing.
And there's actually a physiological explanation for it, that normally, when someone's anxious, you say, take a deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Just take a breath. Well, actually, that's the wrong thing to do, because when you take a deep breath and hold it, how does the air come into your lungs? You reduce pressure in your lungs, right? And so the pressure inside is now less than the pressure in the ambient environment. And so the air rushes in through your nose and mouth, and you fill your lungs. That reduction in pressure in the lungs, in the chest cavity, slightly reduces the return of blood from the superior vena cava into the heart, because veins, unlike arteries, don't have muscles in the wall. So it's the pressure difference that allows the blood to flow. So the heart gets a signal that there's less blood coming and you better pump a little faster and a little harder. So each time you inhale, that's what we call heart rate variability. It changes depending on whether you're inhaling or exhaling, basically. And so what you're doing with cyclic sighing is you're doing a quick inhale and then a nice, long, slow, measured exhale through your mouth. And that increases blood flow to the heart. That triggers parasympathetic activity, not adrenaline or noradrenaline, slows your heart rate. It lowers your blood pressure just a bit. But that helps your body very quickly shift into a parasympathetic mode where acetylcholine is the main neurotransmitter. And it's just a shift in the balance. And when we're anxious, we tend to hyperventilate and underventilate. We don't have as good a flow of air as we could. And so things like that can very quickly help you to better regulate your body and induce relaxation, improve mood.
Is there a good time to do that? When you're stressed or before you're stressed? Or
Yeah, that's probably the best. And I tell people, if you feel like it's starting to get bad, that's the time to do it, before it gets bad, when you're just noticing it. But sometimes, the other thing is, though, once you get into the flow of activities during the day, it's, hard to remember to do something like that. So
stop a meeting.
I sometimes tell people,
to do my breathing. Excuse me.
Excuse me. Hold that.
I'll just pause for a minute.
So instead, you just, when you wake up, you're lying in bed, if you want to set yourself for the day. At set times when you're likely to have a bit of repose and you can do it is a good idea. But anytime you're starting to feel worse, just do a couple of cycles of cyclic sighing and you'll find that you're quickly able to control your body's arousal.
We focused on hypnosis and slow-paced breathing because those are things that you've published research on in recent years, but obviously there are lots of different interventions that could potentially help people feel less stressed, both acutely and chronically, and they include things like progressive muscle relaxation, different forms of meditation, and so on. Some of these can actually be combined. So a good example is, David, you're an expert in sleep too, which we're not focusing on today. And for chronic insomnia, listening to relaxing music can be quite helpful. What do you think about combining things like music or some other anxiety-reducing stimuli? So a good example would be certain forms of aromatherapy, like smelling lavender, for example, can reduce anxiety. Do you think that combining things like music and exposure to relaxing scents could be combined with some things like slow-paced breathing to have additive effects? Because in science, we tend to study things in isolation because we're trying to work out what is the effect of this specific stimulus, but maybe we could get stronger effects if we can combine these things.
Well, I think that could be. It makes sense, if you'll forgive the pun. But at the same time, the only thing is that if you're lying in bed at 2 a.m, for example, and trying to get to sleep, if you have to do something like light a candle or something else,
go get your lavender.
You're getting yourself aroused, just doing that. If you can set things up so that they happen, okay, that's good. But if you're listening to music, you'll probably wake your partner or whatever. The nice thing about self-hypnosis is you can just do it. I used to worry, was the Reverie self-hypnosis app not as good as being in the office with me? And then I thought, if you wake up at 3 a.m, you want to get back to sleep, the last thing you want is me in your bedroom telling you what to do.
Well, David, you never know.
But thank you, Charlie. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time. But
you're terrible, Charlie, today.
Sorry.
See, hypnosis works, Greg. It's
okay, we're all under at the moment.
And it may be different at different times of your day or night. So, for example, if you think that a lavender smell will make you sleep, before you go to bed, set up the candle or whatever it is that gives you that smell. But then don't have to sort of process and engage in physical activity to get yourself to sleep, because you're going to wake yourself up. And the nice thing about hypnosis is that if you're so the lavender is going or whatever else it is, but then if you wake up, rather than say, oh my God, first of all, don't look at the clock. One of the worst mistakes people make with insomnia is that, oh my God, it's 2 a.m, or it's 3 a.m, or it's 5 a.m, whatever it is. It's better that you not know it, because that's an arousal cue. And that will just cause you to wake up more. So instead, just say, I'm going to go somewhere I naturally feel relaxed and comfortable. I'm going to, float in a mountain lake, or I'm going to imagine myself in a warm bath or a hot tub. And that you can do without turning on the lights, without getting out of bed, without arousing your body in other ways. And it is very important that your bedroom be a place of rest and pleasure, nothing else. So you don't bring your laptop into the bedroom. You make sure the lights are out, So if you can combine making your environment optimally supportive of sleep, and then if you wake up or have trouble getting to sleep, do something that doesn't require more arousal and physical activity, but just helps you dissociate your worry about anything from physical arousal, that will allow your parasympathetic nervous system to help you get back to sleep. It's a sort of special kind of combination.
So we've gone through some of the practical tools for managing stress, and now we want to look at how they actually play out in real life. So in the experience section, we hear from some listeners and we've got some questions. So the first question that we've got is from someone called Jane in Essex.
I really like magnesium. I've settled onto magnesium taurate, which helps me sleep and it calms the nervous system. However, it does give me really vivid dreams, so I wake up a little exhausted. There are so many different magnesiums out there, it's hard to know which one is the right one. With magnesium taurate, I open up a capsule and just put a little bit onto a spoonful of food, because if I have a whole capsule, then I really get side effects. But it helps me to sleep and I have a lovely sleep. So a little bit more information on magnesium would be really helpful.
Well, Jane, I'm not an expert on supplements. We don't offer them at our Center for Integrative Medicine at Stanford. But what it sounds to me like as a physician is that the magnesium, even when it gets you to sleep, it's keeping you at a lighter level of sleep than you'd otherwise have. We dream every night. We have rapid eye movement sleep, which is dreaming sleep every 90 minutes. And what seems to be happening for you is that you're being awakened from the middle of a dream. Normally, it's a deeper stage of sleep. You don't wake up during dreams. You are. So I suspect that it may help you get to sleep, but it's interfering with the level of sleep that you get into. And your idea of using a good deal less is maybe one way to do it. But my other recommendation is try reverie. Listen to my voice and learn to imagine you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space, and allow your body to affiliate with that sense of peace and comfort that you get from being somewhere where your body is comfortable. And try that and see if it helps you. And I don't think it will wake you up from your dream states.
I think me and Greg can probably vouch for David's voice. We're feeling very calm and relaxed. So
I'm glad.
Maybe Jane, try that one. So next question is from Polly in London. So she's asked, regarding stress in autistic individuals who don't resonate or feel comfortable with meditation or formal therapy, are there other approaches or recommendations supported by research that may help them manage stress?
There's a growing specialty of people who have problems with autism. And it is a different way of being and thinking, that they tend to not be comfortable with change, not be comfortable with changing paradigms. That can be an obstacle to treatment at times, but there are also very effective ways of people who have these mainstream ways of thinking and feeling. And I would suggest that you get to a specialist. There is now a growing specialty of people who help people with autism to think and feel differently and provide them with a very structured way of dealing with things that tend to disturb and arouse them. They tend to find that even minor changes in experience have major effects on them, and there are ways of buffering them from the consequences of that unwelcome arousal. And by and large, they tend not to be very hypnotizable, so hypnosis is less likely to be an addition to their care.
The next question we've got is from someone called Chris in Peterborough. Chris has said, I wake every morning in a very anxious state. I find it very difficult to stop being anxious about my anxiety, which can escalate into a feeling of panic. I'm on quite a bit of medication and have tried various breathing and other exercises, but I get overwhelmed by negative thoughts, which also manifest in physical symptoms. Nervy tummy, lack of motivation, and general despair that I can't break the wake-up cycle. So there's no actual question, but I think he or she is probably just looking for some advice on maybe trying to break the cycle.
Well, it sounds like you have a pretty serious mixture of anxiety and depression. You're on a bunch of meds. I don't know what they are. There are some medications that can help. I use them with my patients. Some of the newer antidepressants have anti-anxiety qualities. And the problem with chronic use of anti-anxiety meds is that they tend to be habituating. And if you try to cut down on them, you get an amplification of your anxiety. So some of the antidepressants can be good. And I would see, frankly, a good psychiatrist who can help assess you and help you do both. The anxiety and the depression are very difficult to live with, but they're treatable. So I suggest you get a good consultation from a good psychopharmacologist, and then maybe some psychotherapy. There's evidence that various kinds of psychotherapy can be helpful with depression and anxiety. But just as an approach to it, I would just say that the anxiety is very disturbing, but being anxious about being anxious creates that snowball effect.
Yeah.
And so try to just accept it for what it is, figure out what's stimulating it, and get some help in managing the symptoms.
Great. The next question we have is from someone called Aish. I would like to know, what are the signs of stress? Because I'm often not able to tell that I am stressed and often brush things off.
You know, stress isn't all bad. That is, stress is a warning signal that something may be wrong and you better do something about it. And so I would say you're fortunate if you don't have that secondary physiological arousal that makes it worse. But what you may need to do is turn up your hearing aid a little bit. That is, make yourself more sensitive to signals that something may actually be wrong and you may need to do something about it. So, you know, there are a lot of people who sort of go to the extreme of being so anxious and worried about things that they can't solve a problem. You may be so unanxious and not worried that you don't see the problem when it's staring you in the face. So try and just pay a little more attention to what's going on and engage yourself in a solution if you sense a threat coming.
So we like to, I think I'll probably know what it is, but we like to ask our guests for one key takeaway for our listeners. If there was one thing that they could implement or change, what would that be?
Well, it would be for people to mind their bodies, to take advantage of this 3-pound organ that sits on top of your body and use it to its fullest extent possible to help you manage pain, anxiety, stress, insomnia. It provides us with an evolutionary advantage that we don't take full advantage of. And that is, use it to help yourself live better, be happier, love better, enjoy life better. And it's there for the taking, so take it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was lovely to meet
You're
you.
most
We will
welcome.
obviously
Likewise.
link to all your work in the podcast show notes.
Terrific.
It
Great.
was lovely to chat to you.
It was indeed. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Greg.
Charlie,
Yes.
what are your key takeaways, apart from the fact that David has possibly the greatest voice on planet Earth?
I think he should be a voiceover artist. It was delightful. I actually think he was slightly hypnotizing me, because I'll show you my notepad. It's just got his name at the top and then the whole page is blank. I made no notes. But I think that's a sign of a good conversation, that I was just engrossed. I am going to go away and do my 5 minutes a day for a month breathing exercises. See if that helps. Maybe not in the middle of a meeting though. Might get asked to leave. But what were your key takeaways?
One of my takeaways is there's a big range of non-drug treatments that can be helpful. Another, going back to problem-focused strategies, is at the start, David noted that nowadays a lot of problems are more visible than ever because of media, for example. And so I do think we need to think carefully about how we interact with the media.
Yeah.
And I do think that type of two-pronged approach, where we're trying to address the source of the problem, which could just be exposure to media, as well as how we respond to the problem, which could be through things like slow-paced breathing. And maybe hypnosis is one of those things that can be used as both a problem and an emotion-focused strategy, which is very interesting in itself. David noted that sometimes medication is helpful, and frankly, it can save lives. But when that's the case, I think a lot of the things that we've discussed today can still be beneficial adjuncts. You can use them as well as the medication, and there's minimal downsides doing so in the case of things like slow-paced breathing and using hypnotherapy. And then finally, we're all different. So it's worth experimenting to find adaptive, and by that I mean non-harmful, ways to better cope with stress that work for you in your context, because you might try one of these things and for whatever reason it doesn't suit you, but there is a big range of options at your disposal.
Sniffing lavender. I didn't realise that was a calming thing. I don't think that would calm me. I hate the smell of lavender.
Again, that's a good example of personalization, but yeah, lavender aromatherapy, it does seem to reduce anxiety. And
is that why pillow spray always smells of lavender?
yeah, it's exactly why that is so. And lavender is slightly unusual in that when people take it as a dietary supplement, it can also slightly reduce anxiety. There's a particular product called Selexin that's used for that, but I just used it as an instance where it could be added to something else. And like David said, it's not really practical in the middle of the night necessarily when you're lying in bed, but maybe if you've got a pre-bed wind down routine because you're feeling a bit worked up and you want to calm down, you can put some music on in the background and you can pull out your aromatherapy and then you can do some slow-paced breathing. I suspect that combining those things could be beneficial, and more so than just doing the breathing by itself.
You've been listening to The Method, Health in the Real World, a podcast brought to you by Thriver.
If you don't know about Thriver, it's a health tracking platform that helps you see exactly where your health is heading, what to work on, and how to do so. They use painless, at-home blood testing to show you what's going on in your body. Your results are analysed by accredited labs, and based on the tests, you get personalised guidance from real doctors. People use Thriver like a compass, testing every few months to help steer their health to where they'd like it to be. It's a great tool to start feeling more empowered about your health and to get information you need to make progress, even when life is a bit hectic.
Thriver also has some great content out there that can help you get to grips with complex health questions, exactly like what we try to do on this podcast. And all of that is free to access. So if you want to learn more, just head over to thriver.co. That's thriver.co.
And of course, if you love the show, subscribe. Why would you not do that? It takes just a few seconds and you won't regret it.
You can also leave us a review or write to us by email to themethod@thriver.co. Or if you're like me and Greg and you'd rather send things over by voice note, then we'd love to hear from you.
Special thanks to Thriver team and to Lower Street for helping us bring this show to life. Content direction by Rich Cousins, Hamish Grierson, Tamar Loach, Vishal Shah and Katie Yockey. Production from Lise Lavati with the help of Sam Datapoulin and Daria Lawson. And sound design by Alex Rose.
We're your hosts, Charlie Edmondson and Greg Potter, and we'll see you next time. I think I might be a little bit in love with David.
No. I came onto him first.
No, he's mine.
I think my flattery attempts were even greater than yours, but that might work against me. No one wants to seem desperate. That never works in your favour.